Some die of natural causes, some in a tragic way. But for every single one of us, a final night and day. Some live on to a ripe old age, and some die in their prime, and some even die as children. They are not granted much time. Death. Inevitable, indifferent, and expressed in 86 in more ways than just pure violence. In fact, the first 11 episodes never gave us a break from the harsh reality of death that haunted the 86 on a daily basis. But what did the 86 really think about death? Why were they so anxious that Shin, their Reaper, should take them to their final destination? What was their final destination anyway? And most of all, what do all these ideas about death have to do with how to live? We'll be exploring all these questions today, so join me as I unpack practical insights from 86 to help you improve your life and relationships. Imagine you are about to die in 5 minutes, all alone in some street alley in a foreign city. No one knows you are dying, and no one will bury your corpse, which will be consumed by rats, cockroaches, and stray dogs. You have not achieved anything noteworthy in your life, nothing you can be proud of. You have no legacy whatsoever that will outlive you, you have not made an impact on anyone's life, and no one will remember you or miss you when you are gone. Honestly, no one will even know you are gone. How does that make you feel, knowing that it did not even matter either way if you existed or not? I don't know if that troubles you, my friend, but maybe let me know down in the comments below. But that is what the 86 was so afraid of. So how did the 86 deal with such a terrible and depressing situation? Well, they looked forward to their final destination. But what's that? The anime teases us with bits and pieces of clues here and there. It starts off ambiguously in episode 1, when Kaie asks Shin if everybody was able to go yesterday, and Kujo adding that if we are going to die, we'd rather have our Reaper guide us. That statement foreshadowed his own death at the end of the episode, when Layden confirms with Shin that Kujo was able to go. The mechanic Aldrich added that Kujo was lucky to die in the same unit as Shin, noting that Shin took the other processes too. Others like Leica and Kurena counted on Shin as well, confident that even if they died, their Reaper would take them there. Perhaps the closest we get to an explanation is in episode 4, when Shin explained to Lena that the 86 don't get graves, so in his first unit they all made a promise. When someone died, they'd carve their name into a fragment of their juggernaut, and the survivors would carry it. So the last of them to survive would take the others to their final destination. Moreover, it seems like a place that Lena could get to as well, because in his final request to her, Shin wrote, "One day, if you made it to our final destination, would you please leave flowers?" So what do all these ambiguous clues mean? To explain the answer, let us return to our morbid thought experiment of you dying in a street alley. Imagine as you lay there dying, a close friend of yours passes by a minute later. The sight of a half-dead person takes her by surprise, but not as much as the shock she receives when she realizes she recognizes your face.
No!
You didn't have many friends, and even fewer you could call close, but she was one of them. Rushing over, she desperately tries to help you, but soon realizes there is nothing she can do to prevent the inevitable. Your strength rapidly fading away, manage to mutter, "It's too late now. Nothing matters anymore." However, That cold, depressing thought is suddenly warmed as she clutches your hands tight, tears streaming down her face.
You mattered. To me. I won't forget you. I promise.
As your eyes close for the last time, you can't help but crack one last broken smile. Would it bring some comfort to you? Let me know in the comments, my friend, but I'm guessing it probably would. And that is why it was so important to the 86 condemned to die on the battlefield with no burial or memorial that someone remembered them and valued them enough to bring them to their final destination. And that is why the 86 makes such a big deal of remembering people who have died and emphasize the importance of not forgetting them. Right from episode 1, Kujo reminds Shin not to forget his promise to take Kujo to his final destination. As Shin explains to Lena in episode 4, he remembers all 561 of his comrades that have died because he has to take them with him. And it made him happy that Lena actually remembered his brother Shorei because Shin himself could not due to his trauma. Are you getting the picture? But wait, there's more. Perhaps the most emotional and tender moment in the entire series was when Shin asked Lena, "Will you remember us?" marking a major milestone in Shin and Lena's character arcs as Shin reveals the deepest yearning of his heart, entrusting himself to Lena to provide some comfort from knowing that someone would remember him after he was gone. This is highly significant because when Lena firmly replied that she would remember all of them, all of a sudden, Shin was no longer alone in carrying the burden of his fallen comrades. Now Lena would remember them on Shin's behalf. Knowing that there was someone who would outlive him and not leave him behind was a huge relief to Shin and immensely alleviated his loneliness. Therefore, the final destination is not a place in the physical world, but a place in someone's heart. It's not somewhere you get to, it's someone to remember you. Around the world, are there not memorial ceremonies that are held each year to remember those who died in war? While cemeteries are the final resting places for these fallen soldiers, their final destination is in the hearts of those who remember them long after they're gone. Here in Australia, we commemorate the war date on Anzac Day every year, and as part of the ceremony, the Ode is recited. It declares, "They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them." Now, if Shin takes you to your final destination, it means your life mattered to him. If your life mattered, it means you will be remembered. And if you are remembered, it means your life was significant. And for the 86 who have been stripped of everything of value, including their intrinsic worth as human beings, the only significant decision they could make was not how they would die, but how they would go to their deaths. As they say, the journey is as important as the destination, right? So the question is, how did their final destination shape their journey through life? In the case of the 86 for whom living was not an option, they chose to go to their deaths with dignity, dying with pride and honor on the battlefield alongside their fellow 86. This is why all the 86 in Spearhead Squadron took immense pride in fighting to the bitter end. However, there was something about this strange path to their final destination that was unbearably painful and hopelessly suicidal on one hand, but also remarkably empowering and unexpectedly liberating at the same time. It was as if they were walking the path or the way of the warrior, known to the samurai as Bushido, a concept central to the film The Last Samurai. In this film, the leader of the samurai, Katsumoto, had a few intriguing conversations with his enemy Captain Algren, a mercenary hired to help crush Katsumoto's rebellion against the Japanese emperor. When it came to the idea of death, both men were fearless, seasoned soldiers as they were. But while both men suffered trauma from the horrors of war, only Algren was tormented with guilt because he was willing to fight and die for reasons he wasn't proud of. He couldn't live with himself because of the soul-crushing shame. But Katsumoto, on the other hand, was only willing to fight and die for honor, which gave him not only a clear conscience, but a moral code that imbued every aspect of his life. As Katsumoto explained to Algren, Bushido is to know life in every breath, every cup of tea, every life we take, the way of the warrior. That is Bushido. In other words, what you will give your life for has a direct influence on what you will give your life to. Like Katsumoto, the final destination of the 86 defined every action they took, every decision they made, and every step of their journey towards a good death. But I've got to ask, what does a good death mean? Well, it all depends on what you will give your life for. For Katsumoto, willing to die for honor had such a great influence on how he lived, which made his life not only honorable, but meaningful as well. And that is why when Katsumoto died in the final battle, and the emperor asked Algren, "Tell me how he died," Algren wisely replied, "I will tell you how he lived." Indeed, how one lives their life and one's final destination are closely intertwined in 86 as well, with the anime cleverly contrasting life in the Republic as an Elba and life on the front lines as an 86. We see the irony of Lena, a privileged Elba, rejecting the status quo even though she is comfortably part of the master race, while the 86 accept the status quo even though they are suffering and dying as part of the oppressed race. However, the irony is intentional to advance the theme of living an examined life. The Elbas live comfy but ultimately phony and hypocritical lives with their false sense of security because they haven't a clue about what they will die for or from. On the other hand, the 86 live harsh but ultimately authentic and meaningful lives with no illusions because they know precisely what they will die for. Their different final destinations resulted in different life journeys. The dilemma is this: is it better to live comfortably as an Elba or die miserably as an 86? Ultimately, 86 shows us that unless you know what you will die for, you might end up with plenty to live on but nothing to live for. And so after all we have talked about, we are left with the most important question: how then shall we live? Corazon Aquino, the first female president of the Philippines and the 1986 Time magazine Woman of the Year, boiled it down pretty well when she remarked that "I would rather die a meaningful death than to live a meaningless life." Indeed, the pursuit of meaning and significance is so important for human beings that if we can't find it in life, we would rather find it in death. My dear friend, have you decided what you will live for? Do you know what you will die for? Let me know in the comments if you have ever thought about it. Heavy questions, I know. But if we avoid them now, they might come back to haunt us. Perhaps when times are tough and giving up on life seems like the easiest option. Or when we're on our deathbeds, like old men filled with regrets, looking back on our lives wondering, what if? Even so, some of you watching this might feel like Lena in the Republic. You're following the crowd and cruising along just fine, but you feel like you're just going through the motions of some superficial existence. Perhaps you didn't have a choice, and you had to submit to the wishes of others and are living their version of your life. Or maybe everything's going great, and you've never even thought about all this morbid stuff about death. But guess what? If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they've planned for you? Not much. Consequently, 86 shows us that if we want to live a life of significance on our terms, we've got to begin with the end in mind. And with that in mind, some simple questions we might want to ask ourselves are: Number 1. What is one regret I do not want to have at the end of my life? Number 2. Will what I'm doing now leave me with that regret? And number 3. What can I do differently to avoid that regret? Perhaps Steve Jobs said it best at his Harvard commencement speech when he advised graduates to live every day as if it were your last, and someday you will be right. Indeed, if we let the realization of our impending death influence the way we live today, we shall have far fewer regrets when the time comes. Now, having said all that, the 86 may have their final destination all figured out, but it still means absolutely nothing if they were stuck behind daunting obstacles preventing them from moving forward. And boy, are there a whole lot of obstacles. How did they overcome them? Here's a clue. It has something to do with the railroad. Click this video here to find out more. And if you've enjoyed this one, hit subscribe and click that bell for more insights from the world of anime to help you improve your life and relationships.